Hello and welcome to the Agency Show by Clientjoy. I'm Yash, co-founder and chief executive at Clientjoy. At Clientjoy, we help agencies manage their leads, proposals, contracts, projects, support, invoicing, and payments, the whole 9 yards. The Agency Show is our podcast where we invite agency experts and owners who make 7+ figures a year to talk about their problems across their growth, fulfillment, and revenues, and we talk about their journey of solving these problems. If you're an agency owner, the show is for you. So do not forget to hit the subscribe button. In this episode of the Agency Show, we've got Tim Kilroy. Over the last 23 years, he's founded 3 agencies and successfully exited 2 of them. Now, he coaches digital marketing agencies and helps them scale their sales without having to work harder. There's always a better way to do it, he says. In this conversation, we talk about some of the biggest mistakes founders can make in their early days. This conversation is brought to you by Clientjoy. Give this talk a listen if you're looking to learn first principles of building your agency. Hello and welcome to this episode of the Agency Show. Today, I have Mr. Tim Kilroy joining me, and we're going to talk about some really interesting and exciting topics for you. We're going to talk about how do you as an agency determine your own marketing ROI? How can you go around positioning, especially in your sales outreach efforts that you're putting in? And the third key thing that we're going to talk about is how can you make your clients realize what value are you bringing to the table? So Tim, thank you for joining us today. If you can share a little bit about your journey, I think that would be a great way to start.
Sure. Yeah, thanks, Yash. I'm super glad to be here. So I've been at this stuff for a really long time. I started doing digital marketing in 1997.
Okay.
Which is, it's a long time ago.
Yeah.
So like all this grain in my beard, like this is real.
Yeah.
Like I'm not just doing this for effect. And so throughout my journey, so I rode the .com wave, and the crash, right? And it was the .com crash that actually spurred my agency career, because honestly, I had been working for this company. I live in Boston on the East Coast of the United States, and I was working for this company in California, and I was traveling a bunch. And when the .com crash came, I had a young family, and my wife said, can you maybe be at home a little more? Because we have babies. And I was like, sure, yes, okay. And so I couldn't find a job anywhere, so I decided to make one. And so I started an agency, and honestly, we did anything. If it had to do with marketing, we did it. We did we did newsletters, we did email, we did some website development, we did postcards. Like if it had marketing anywhere, we did sales training, like anywhere in it, like that's what we did, right? And that scaled up. And after like 3.5 years, I was so tired.
It must have burned you out,
exhausted.
right? I mean, doing each and everything.
Yeah. It totally burned me out, because like we did all of this stuff, and for a company to be good at all of this stuff, like basically anything anybody said, can you do this? I said yes, right? Because I thought that was the way to grow. And I never gave my team the ability to get good at anything, because I was always like, oh no, stop doing this, do that thing, right? And it was and it was just miserable. And that agency crashed super hard because I crashed, because I couldn't do it anymore. Like we were running out of cash because I was too busy to send out invoices. Like how stupid is that, right? And so, and sadly at that point in 2001, there was no Clientjoy to help me send out invoices, right? So, was that a good plug? Yeah. Okay.
Oh yeah, that's awesome. That's amazing. Yeah. Even I couldn't think of that, and I'm the founder. I mean, thank you.
So I burned myself out because I didn't have any focus, and I wasn't smart enough to know what I didn't know, and like I didn't know like who I should get help from, all that kind of stuff. and also, by the way, back in 2000, like there weren't nearly as many resources to help you build things as there are today. So I took this entrepreneurial journey and I crashed so hard, and it took me a long time to dig out from that crash, both financially and but more importantly emotionally. And so I had to go get a real job, like working for somebody else. That was terrible. Don't ever do it. It's really bad. And then I started another agency because I thought, like, ooh, okay, you know what? I've got it this time. And my next agency, we actually we scaled up really fast. Because we were really focused. We did SEO and a little bit of at that point organic social, and we were really focused on it. And we only served e-commerce retailers, and we had a clear process. And we got better and better, and we were really good at it. And then within 2 years, we get acquired by a much bigger agency. And that was awesome. That was great. And then I worked at that big agency and took that brand new division, because they acquired us to add SEO and social to their array of services. And so we grew that division quickly. And then after 2 years, after my indentured servitude was over, I thought, well, I don't want to go work for someone else again. And then I ended up, but then because of a non-compete, I couldn't do a job in the agency world. So I went client side for a couple years. I was a CMO of a fashion company, and honestly learned so much about how agencies should serve people, because most of the time I had been looking at it from the agency side, but when I was a client, I was like, oh, dude, like there's so many things wrong with the way the agencies think about this. And so then I couldn't, I don't like working for other people. So even though I was the CMO, it was not awesome for me. So I started another agency, and this was in the paid search realm. And we built that up really quickly. And we layered some cool data stuff on top of it. And then we exited out to another agency, a really big one. And I worked there for a year, but again, since I'm not a good employee, as soon as I could, I went. And then to tell you the truth, I couldn't start another agency for a couple of years because of non-compete stuff. And a friend of mine called me, and she said that her agency revenue has been stuck for 6 years. And 6 years ago, that revenue was awesome. Today, it feels really bad. Same number, but very different feelings about it. And she said, I've seen that you've done this a couple of times. Can you help? And I said, sure, I'll coach you. And then as soon as I started coaching her, like the sun came out and there were rainbows and there were bunnies everywhere. And I thought, like, holy guacamole, this is exactly what I'm supposed to be doing with my life. Okay. And so from that moment on, I became an agency coach, and it is the best job that I have ever had. Like it's just amazing, honestly. Like it's so fun, and it's so personal and important. It's great.
So this is kind of so hearing to you makes me feel like this is the best compromise that you could come up with, in the sense that you are now not working for other people. However, you still are, and you're still your own boss, and you're still able to kind of have your own practice, but at the same time kind of help other people grow. And that's kind of the best of both worlds in that sense, right? So great.
And in the truest sense, my business is a service business.
Yeah.
Right. So I serve, and my team serves my clients by helping them identify and fix problems in their business, find resources that they can come up with to grow their businesses, and help them be happier in their businesses. So the big thing that we always focus on, there's 3 things that we focus on with our clients: is more revenue, more profit, and more happy. And that's that last one. It's the happy part. If you're not happy, profit and revenue don't count. Like they just don't matter. And
For
so
sure.
much of what we do, especially with early stage agencies, you know, what it really has happened is the founder has just made themselves a job.
Yeah.
Right. Like you can't take
Yeah.
vacation, you know, you can't
Yeah.
you're like, you got your phone on you all the time and you're worried that some customer is, you know, is going to fire you, and you're worrying about cash flow and all that sort of stuff. And like, and we'll get to our direct topic about return on investment for agencies, but like I'm going to give you like this is the most important thing an agency founder can hear. Your job is not to make happy customers. Like that is not your job as the agency founder. Your job is to create a team and processes that create happy customers. Right. So that's huge. Like that is so big. And as a matter of fact, that is an enormous filter. So if you solve that problem, you can grow. If you don't solve that problem, you can't grow beyond your personal bandwidth.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And so this is something that I struggled with myself when we used to run an IT service agency ourselves. And I see a lot of other agency owners as well. So if you think about it, I mean, the numbers could be different between, let's say, an Indian agency and a US agency, because over here it's a lot more people intensive, and so it's not difficult to hire people. You can find a lot of people, but you actually are able to see that, hey, when I see agencies around, there are agencies who'd grow to 15 or 20 in the first year, or maybe 18 months, right? 15 or 20 people, and they'll have 4 or 5 customers that they are concurrently serving. And then they go from 20 to 30 over the next 2-3 years maybe, and then they are kind of hovering between 28 to 35, right? And that's kind of pretty much it. For kind of, or there are other agencies which are kind of beyond 100 people in the first couple of years itself, and then they just keep on growing. And so I think what you just said is primarily the difference, right? Where over here it's essentially the founder is kind of on call with all the customers, and over there it's the team that's making the customer happy and kind of delivering whatever services that the agency is. And so this kind of resonates a lot.
Yeah, and here's another sort of like way to think about it. Most agencies are started by somebody who's good at doing stuff. You know, like we started I started our SEO agency because I was really good at SEO. You know, I was really skilled at it, and so I thought, okay, awesome, we got an agency. Woo-hoo-hoo, yeah, right. But in the beginning, you know, I needed to be the guy in the middle. Like I needed to be the guy doing the SEO because I was good at it and I liked being good at it. And I got positive feedback from being good at it.
Yeah.
Right. Like I would do something, it would work and be like, oh yeah. And so I was validated, right? My identity was around being an SEO guy.
Yeah.
Well, guess what? If that's where you keep on getting your validation from being good at the thing that you do, then you end up in that founder-centric, I have to touch everything agency, because you're only getting your validation from the output.
Yeah.
Right. And so you've got to, additionally, you got to make this mindset shift. Instead of being, in my case, instead of being the great SEO guy, I had to turn myself into a great leader of SEO people.
Yeah.
And that's very different, right?
That's a different ballgame
so,
altogether.
Right. So I had to learn how to get my validation, not from the fact that I could do special magic things, you know, with keyword research and content and links and, you know, like, great. Right. But like, if I stayed in there, like you're basically a consultant with helpers. Yeah. Right. And that doesn't scale. And that's not a way that you can you can effectively grow. So what you need to be able to do is sort of elevate yourself out of the best doer in your company, and you got to be the best leader of doers in your company.
And this is
Yeah.
absolutely necessary.
Right. And by the way, it's really hard because like you spent your whole life getting good at something, and then you start a company around it, and they're like, hey, you know what? You should probably stop doing the thing that got you right here. But as we all know, what got you here isn't necessarily going to get you there. Right.
That's absolutely.
So yeah. So growing is hard. and honestly, but you also, and by growing, I don't actually mean growing your company, but growing yourself is hard. And that is a key part of growing your company, so you can generate more revenue, more profit, and most importantly, more happiness.
Yeah, absolutely. And so if there was one thing that anyone could take away from, while I mean the three questions are still outstanding, but if there is, this should be like the principle number one, right? So as a founder, just work on the company and not in the company. And that's kind of that should be the number one principle.
Right. Now, of course, at times, at the very beginning, you and the company are the same. So it's kind of like at the very beginning, but you have to realize, like, okay, we've got 2 customers or 3 customers or 4 customers. And you're like, oh, wait a minute, I need to stop doing the stuff.
Correct.
Right. Like when you're working with a client, or when your team is working with a client, and your instinct is, it's just faster for me to do it than to explain it to you. Like full stop. Like that's when things are on fire, and you've got the wrong connection to your business.
Correct.
Right. Correct. So as soon as you're like, oh, I'll just do it. Right. Like that, as soon as you feel that, like, that's when you're like, uh-oh, red flag, got to switch my thinking, because if I'm putting it on my shoulders, right, if I'm taking the load, then number one, I'm telling my team, like, you're not good enough.
Yeah.
When that's not true, because if your team isn't good enough, it means that you as an executive, founder, leader, you're not good enough because you didn't make a good enough team, right? Right. Sure. But as soon as you start putting stuff on your back and walking around, like, you get tired.
Yeah, absolutely.
Absolutely. And eventually, if you get so tired, you forget to send out invoices and you run out of cash.
Yeah.
Like I did my first agency.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And so every founder kind of goes through this. Every founder of an agency kind of goes through this, and they've just got to like let go of the things that they're good at and become better at things that they've not done yet.
Exactly.
For sure. And, absolutely. And so coming to the first thing that we want to kind of understand from you is see, there are a lot of initiatives that an agency would have to take, in the sense, they'll have to be listed on different listing platforms. They'll have to have a referral program in place. They'll have to create a lot of landing pages. They'll have to create a lot of content, and all of these different activities that an agency does for itself in order to kind of fuel their own growth or market their own agency out there. How do you kind of measure ROI on these sets of activities where, some of them are going to, in case of referral, you don't know what's going to happen. In case of content, they may pay out like 6 months, a year later. So what's the thought process? How do you go ahead?
Okay. So the number one thing, you can't think about the I part of ROI, the investment part, until you are sure that you've got a machine that can turn prospects into buyers, right?
Okay.
So lots and lots and lots of agencies, especially today, they think, all right, well, I'm an agency, so the very first thing I got to do is I got to put up this long sales letter, VSL funnel thing on ClickFunnels and start running Facebook ads. Like, that's the key to success. Well, no, that's actually the key to making Mark Zuckerberg more wealthy. So because you will get nothing out of that. So before you get to ROI, you have to think about ROE, return on effort.
Okay.
And so the return on effort. So in order to scale something, you have to know that it works, right?
For sure. Yeah.
So the very first thing you have to do is you have to start tracking your inputs and outputs. So your input might be how many emails did I send this week to prospects, or how many LinkedIn posts did I make, or how many connections did I make on Facebook, or how many posts in a Facebook group, or and so you start tracking those things, and then you start thinking, okay, great. So I know that for every, and this is these are very close to actual numbers for me, but for every 8 connections I make on LinkedIn, I start 2 conversations.
Okay.
So, right. So, and I know that a conversation just means I'm actually engaged with somebody. It doesn't mean that they're necessarily a prospect, but I've started 2 connections, so 2 conversations. And it takes me about 10 conversations to get to the point where I make a sales pitch. Right, where someone's like, okay, great, this sounds cool, right? And so then so I got a couple numbers there, right? So 8 connections get me 2 conversations, and then it takes me 10 conversations to get to the point where I've got a qualified prospect
or lead. Yeah.
So yeah, so in order to get, so now I work backwards. So from sale, it took me 10 conversations to get there, right?
Yeah.
Right. And then it takes and so that means I need to have 10 conversations, and I know that it takes 8 connections to generate 2 conversations. I can do a little math in my head and realize that I need to do 8 times 4 in terms of connections.
Yeah.
Generally speaking, in order to make sure that at some time somewhere in a reasonable time frame, like I'm gonna get a conversation that's probably a sale, right?
Yeah.
So now, right, so that's simple math, but when you're really busy, you're not thinking about that, right? You're not thinking like, well, let me analyze all of my activities over the last 7 months so I can figure out what my baseline numbers are. Like, no, so just start now, right? So just start today and figure out what your numbers are. And the same thing works with like cold email. Like you send out 50 cold emails, you get whatever, 3, 4, 5 responses. Those 5 responses turn into 1 meeting. That 1 meeting, and it takes me 4 meetings to get a sale. Great. And so now you know what you got to do. And so you really got to think about return on effort first, because to tell you the truth, if you're, in my opinion, if you're below, like, I don't know, 70 grand a month in revenue, advertising really expensive. Now, by the way, that's not universally true. I have a client who gets all of his leads from Facebook ads. Like, and it's the only thing, but that's the only thing he's ever done. And so he's been doing it for years. And so at this point now he's tweaked it so that he's getting, he's getting leads. I think he's getting leads at something like $68 a lead, and he has got a high close rate. So, and so it costs him something like $400 to make a sale, roughly. That's for him. Those economics work out. Yeah, those economics work out fantastically. It did take him a half a dozen years to get to that point. And there was a lot of trial and terror there. But the way to calculate your return on investment is to really understand the inputs, like how much do I need to put in versus how much do I get out, right? And also, because agency stuff, you don't meet somebody and close a deal the same day.
Oh, for sure.
Right? So there is, even though agencies are like super they're super, if you deal with e-commerce folks, like you're tracking everything. So, but agency biz dev, there's a little fudge in there, right? There's, so you're tracking your agency numbers. You may not actually know everything. And it's different when you're selling when you're selling a service that demands some sort of personal interaction in order to close. Like you can't track everything because you could actually have the perfect lead sitting in front of you. And, and that person, for whatever reason, just thinks like, oh, I don't like their eyes.
Yeah,
I wouldn't know. Right. So like, it's not a perfect science, but inputs and outputs. And by the way, since I know everybody listening here wants to know about the guy who's doing Facebook ads, and it's so easy for him and it's predictable and all that kind of stuff. And I do happen to know, because I talk to him frequently, he closed 4 deals last week. That's pretty good. Not so bad. He's actually a coach. His name is Mitch, and he's a coach in my agency breakout program. And so you can get his secrets inside of agency breakout. That was my pitch.
Was that okay? Yeah, absolutely.
Okay,
that's such a good plug. Yeah. We'll link it down below.
All right, cool. Yeah, and so you got to the way to track return on investment is start with tracking return on effort. Like, what are the actions I need to take to get the desired result? Once you understand that, then you can say, okay, great. Now I can start to scale this. And so that might be, if you're doing LinkedIn, maybe you have everybody on your company doing LinkedIn outreach, right? And that takes more effort, but it gets you some scale.
Correct.
Right? Because in agency, selling should be a team sport, right?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Or if you're right, but if you start with ads, like you got to think like, okay, I'm tracking this. I'm not tracking the money I spend versus the money I get. I'm tracking the activities that I take, this many impressions, this many click-throughs, this many leads, this many meetings. I'm tracking those things to see if I can get to a place where the economics are okay, where I can apply more to this. And so you've got to start out really in a highly effort-based test and learn. And once something is stable, then you can start to scale it. A huge issue, an enormous issue for lots and lots of agencies is they feel like scale is the most important thing. And it isn't, right? Because if you scale too quickly, your delivery falls apart, right? And if you scale too quickly, your ability as a manager falls apart, or your ability to hire quickly enough falls apart. So you really do need to sort of do things in the right sequence. And scale is not the answer to the frustrations you are having. Scale actually brings about more frustrations, right? They're different, right? They're different frustrations, but more money, more problems, right? So scale is not the answer to happiness.
Correct.
The answer, the answer is being able to, the answer to happiness, honestly, is be able to do what you do it really well, be proud of it, create great relationships with your team and customers, and be able to feed yourself. Like that's happiness, right? And the concept of scale, and this is so hard in our noisy world. Everybody wants to go fast. They want to go like they want to get to the they want to get to the to the Lamborghini and the Rolex and
I mean, move fast and break things, run before you can walk, and it just doesn't. It actually breaks things and you fall down. So
right, and so like if it takes you 4 months or 4 years to build a good, solid company that will last, you are equally successful.
Correct.
Right?
Absolutely.
So like, don't be in a rush, because through every step you're going through from, you know, when you're a consultant, like, and you decide to hire somebody to help, like, you know, like you got to learn how to do that. And then, you know, then you've got to go through that switch we talked about before, where you're going from the best doer to the best leader of doers. You got to go through that. Like, that's a hard shift. And then you've got to think like, okay, great. All right. So now as we start to scale, I am no longer even the best marketer in my company. Like, I don't know the most, because I've been smart enough to hire people who are more expert than I am and can do a better job. And I've given them the tools and resources. And so now, like now what do I need to learn how to do? I need to learn how to hire. I need to learn how to, you know, create culture and all that kind of stuff. And so like, you can't go faster than you're able. Absolutely. And trying to do that makes you miserable.
Yeah. And so I think what you're trying to say is a better way to kind of go about it might be to figure out what your funnel is and what those ratios are between each of the steps of the funnel.
Yes, that is the number one thing. So as a matter of fact, the most successful internet company in history, Amazon, they really think about their pages. Like, they don't really care what's on the page. Yeah. They just think about the page as inputs and outputs. So what people go to the page, what's their intent? You know, what time of day is it? What kind of browser is it? So they've got all of these things that are inputs into the page. Correct. And the output of the page is the action they took on the page. It's not sales, right? Yeah. So they're tracking what inputs influence what outputs, and you can do exactly the same thing. This is Amazonian thinking for you, like at your scale, which is which actions lead to which results. And then if I scale up those actions, does it lead to more results? Correct. And if you can create a positive correlation between action and the result that you're after, and by the way, the result you're after is never a sale. Like, the sale is the outcome of all the stuff that you do. Correct. But like, so if I make all these LinkedIn posts, do I get more conversations? Yes or no? Yeah, for sure. And if the answer is no, like, yeah, do something else. Yeah, don't do it. But, you know, there is, right. I mean, you know, and I don't want to sound flippant here, but this is like trial and terror, right? You know, like like you gotta try a lot of things that don't work in order to find the things that do work. Yeah. And that takes time and perseverance. And by the way, what works for one agent, what works for one agency may not work for another. May not work for right, because your agency is different. Yeah. Yeah. And I was just saying 999 ways to not make a bulb to be able to get to right. Exactly. Right. Yeah. You know, but by the way, like, Thomas Edison didn't there wasn't he didn't have a blueprint to follow. He was making it up as he was going along. And as an agency owner, you don't have to like make it up as you go along. Yeah. Like, you know, there's a limited number of ways you can create leads. Correct. Right. And so you can start attacking them one at a time and figure it out. Like, it is much less complex than creating a light bulb for the first time. Oh, right? For sure. Like, you know, there's a bunch of people like me in the world who have been through this and can say, hey, you know what, based on all of the experience I have, maybe you should try that instead of this. Yeah. Right. You should try something else, because, you know, you're chasing somebody else's version of you, and that's not right. So, you know, the people want to do like Facebook ads and like big shiny videos, and, you know, if that's who you are, that's great. But most of the things that you see as an agency owner are people like trying to sell you stuff. Yeah. Right. And the stuff that you see, so your world of media is different than the world of media that your clients see. Ah, right. So if you are selling to them as people sell to you, that won't work. And listen, you've got to be able to understand them. Now, here is, and this is another big secret I'm full of big secrets today, but the real place to get return is it's ROU, not ROI. It's ROU. That's
Okay.
return on understanding.
Okay.
So the better you understand your target audience, the better your returns will be.
Correct.
So often what happens, and this I'm just going to use an example here. So I used to teach at a local university, and one of my students, he was like, oh, Professor Kilroy, like, can you help me? And I was like, sure, great. He's like, yeah, so like we started this agency to sell to dentists.
Okay.
I'm like, cool, awesome. Tell me about it. It's like, yeah, so we got these like video ads and we're doing coupons and all this stuff. And I was like, okay, great. How's it going? He's like, yeah, like we keep on getting clients, but then we don't get any results for them and they fire us. I was like, okay, great. And I'm like, so how are you getting clients? And he's like, well, we're doing it for free. And I said, well, first of all, that's your big mistake. Like, don't ever do it for free, because that's like, nobody's ever going to value something after you get, after they've like, no one's going to pay you for something that they don't value. But the big thing, the big disconnect is like, they didn't understand what dentists really wanted. And they thought that dentists they just want new patients. And that's not what dentists really want. They want new patients who aren't using dental insurance. Because dental insurance means the dentist gets paid less. He wants people paying out of pocket.
Correct.
Right. And so people are paying out of pocket. The people who can pay out of pocket are not going to they're not the people who are going to respond to the $37 new patient special, right? Because those are value seekers, right?
Correct.
So there's this huge disconnect for this team of guys who are selling to agencies, but selling to dentists, but they don't know what dentists want, right? They had no idea because they've never been a dentist, never talked to a dentist before, but they read somewhere that dentists were a good niche. So that's what they went for. And then also they'd never purchased dental services in any way. So they didn't know really how it works. So they had no understanding of the markets they were trying to serve. So the number one market they were trying to serve is the dentist. And the number two market they're trying to serve is the audience of the dentist. And they didn't have enough understanding to serve either. So the better you understand your audience and their audience, your returns will increase. So really think about it, return on understanding. So if you're running into a problem, you're running into a frustration, the first thing you need to think is like, do I understand everything here? Do I really understand everything here? Do I know, do I know what my inputs are? Do I know what I want my outputs to be? And do I understand the mechanisms, that the people that I'm trying to serve, what the mechanisms that they use?
This is super important. So one of our mentors in the product also kind of so we basically, when we started Clientjoy as a product, we essentially said, hey, we ourselves were an agency, so we understand the pains of an agency, and so let's just start building a product. And one of our mentor, who's also an investor, he essentially stopped the call right there, said, you know what, Yash, assumptions are the mother of all fuck ups, right? So
totally, 100%.
Yeah. So when we start by saying, hey, dentists obviously want more customers, that's an assumption, right? And what kind of customers are they looking?
Right.
So you want to talk to, and so we kind of spoke to 200 people in 33 different companies in 14 sub verticals in agency to be able to figure out that what is the actual problem that they face before you start building the application or let's say starting an agency or identifying a customer set. So you always want to do that for sure.
Right. That's if you're just starting your agency, by the way, you do not have to talk to 200 people before you start like building software is different.
Different,
right?
For sure.
Right. But because you can, here's a great way to do market research on your target audience, is you just ask them.
Yeah.
Like, so like, so here are the things that I can do. Like I can drive traffic, or I can build web pages, or whatever my skill set is. And like, what do you, Mr. Client, need out of that?
Yeah.
Do you need more traffic, or do you need better traffic? Do you need traffic that comes all the time, or are you looking to do an event? And so you just ask these questions. You're like, oh, okay. So now I put it in my head that Joe the dentist, like, he doesn't care about the volume of traffic. Yeah. He cares about the quality of traffic, right? Yeah. Okay, cool. So now I know when I'm talking to dentists, if I start with quality of traffic, like, yeah, I'm probably ahead of the game, because other people are like, yeah, well, you're going to have so many leads that you're not going to know what to do with it, and you're going to have to like build a new offense, and but like, that's not real, right? So if you just got to think like, okay, what is the thing that this person needs? Mm-hmm. And if you don't know what that is, don't assume that it's what you can do. Ask them. Say like, yeah, these are the inputs that I can give you. What do you want the output to be?
Correct. Absolutely. So moving on to the next and the last question that or rather, it's not necessarily a question, more of a topic of conversation. And so I want to start off with an example of ourselves, right? So we're based in a second-tier city in India, and just where we are, because there's a huge cost arbitrage.
There's no such thing as a second-tier city.
Oh, okay. So it's a smaller city.
Like, it's where, yeah, it's a smaller city, but it's where your home is, and it's just as good as any other city.
Oh yeah, it's absolutely, for sure.
Except for Boston, because Boston is the best city in the world. But that's beside the point. Like, anyway.
For sure. But so the kind of situation that you'll see in these kind of places is that because there's a huge cost arbitrage, right? The cost of living is so low.
Yeah.
That services really spawns in these places, right? Because we're basically essentially able to give what's considered as a really, really good compensation for an engineer over here is kind of 10% of what you'd have to pay to someone in the US, at least, in the US is a minimum wage. And so because of that, there's this huge amount of competition, right? And so the place where we are, there are about 1,200 other services companies which are into IT. And that kind of raises a big question as to how do you position yourself when you're sending out an email, because everyone is going to say, hey, do you want dedicated resources in PHP or dedicated resources for content writing or whatever the case may be. And so how do you stand out?
Yeah. So how do you stand out? So first of all, the way that you stand out is by, we're going to go back to, is by understanding your customer. Mm-hmm. I must say, I probably get, 10 messages a day, mostly on LinkedIn, from somebody trying to sell me services that are not relevant to me.
Yeah.
And I call them the hello sir message. Like, hello sir, I'm an ISO 9001 certified IT specialist who programs in these 97 languages. And and we have dedicated resources starting at $263 a month. Yeah. How many would you like? Right? Like, and like I have zero use for those services, and so that's just noise, right? Yeah. A great way to sort of stand out is by not doing all of that stuff. Mm-hmm. So the reason why, so there's so much competition. Right? That means that everybody thinks the only answer to getting more business is scale. So I'm going to do the easiest thing in the world, which is I'm just going to copy and paste this message 50,000 times and hope that one of those 50,000 people says yes. Right?
Just a classic spray and pray, right?
Right. And in hyper competitive markets, that is a very very normal conclusion. Like,
Yeah.
well, if they're going to send 10,000 emails, I'm going to send 100,000.
1,000.
Right. And I'll be 10 times as big as them. But no, that's stupid, because your ability to connect does not scale.
Yeah.
So what you really need to be able to do is sort of, number one, understand your customer, right? So if I happen to be in the market for a PHP developer, which, by the way, everyone listening, I'm not, please don't reach out to me. I don't need a PHP developer. Okay.
It doesn't
I don't need a
matter.
backlink builder. I don't good.
It
Okay.
doesn't matter. Your
Right.
LinkedIn title could say, I'm not looking for a PHP developer. You still
No.
get the sales pitches. Yeah.
Right. Exactly. But I think, what does your customer want when they think, I need a developer?
Yeah. What do they do? Where do they look out for?
Well, no. No. Do they really want a developer? No. What they want is the thing that they're trying to do to be done.
Yeah. Oh, okay.
Right. So the big problem, especially in highly competitive sort of commoditized services, is that you sell what you do, rather than telling the customer what they get.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Right. So I could care less if you've got a certification, this certification or that certification. Like, great, that's awesome. That means that you're good at getting certifications. But what's the problem you're solving for me?
Correct.
Right. And if my only criteria for getting a technical resource is that they're really cheap, well, first of all, I'm a jerk.
Yeah.
Right. Because buying things only because they're cheap isn't good. But it means that, like, if that's my primary criteria, I'm not really building something that's worthwhile.
For sure.
But in this, and by the way, I do love labor market arbitrage. Lots of my clients use folks in different countries, and I think it's awesome, because, first of all, it democratizes, sort of helps normalize some global inequalities, right? But I think the thing to really think about is, if you are one of these hyper competitive commoditized services, well, just think about the customer first, not you, right? Because frankly, when someone reaches out to me, if the only thing that they want is to make a sale, that means they're just trying to take from me, right? Without giving anything, right? And so if your first engagement is, hi, would you buy something from me? Would you? Like, it's really cheap. I don't know if you need it, but it's really, really cheap, right? Like no one's buying that.
Yeah.
So we've got to sort of adjust things. So you're thinking, okay, great. If I've got this parcel of PHP developers, I got to go through a couple of things here. So first of all, who's most likely to hire a PHP developer? Is it like Bob, who runs a pet store? Or is it Joe, who runs a web development company?
Oh, for sure, Joe. Yeah.
Right. So if it's Joe, so first of all, so stop reaching out to Bob, because you're wasting your time, right?
Yeah.
And if you're reaching out to Joe, you think, okay, wow, all right. So what does Joe need? So Joe, what's his business? He builds Shopify Plus websites. Okay, awesome, great. Does my skill set fit in there? Like, just looking from the outside, is PHP going to fit there?
Yeah.
And tell you the truth, like, I think Shopify runs on their own language, Liquid. And so I don't know if PHP is applicable, because I'm not a developer, but I don't think it is. but let's assume that you were relevant. Yeah, right. Okay. And so you're thinking, okay, now is the best thing that I can do for Joe is tell him like, yeah, well, we are really cheap. Or can I tell Joe, like, we've worked with other agencies and here are the 3 problems we generally solve for them. Do you have any of those issues?
And how are you solving them right now? Or are they of priority?
Right. Or you can just say like, here are the 3 big problems that we're solving. Like, do you have any of those right now? I mean, I don't know if you do, but if you do, like, we've got tried and true ways to help, and maybe it's worth a conversation.
For sure.
Like, so what are you more likely to engage with? Like, hi, please buy the thing that I don't know, it's just cheap. Come on, please do it.
Yeah.
Right? Or like, hey, these are the problems we solve. If you've got those, I'd love to talk to see if either we can help you, or like I can just give you some value right now and you'll be on your way to solve them. And both of those, by the way, even though when you make a connection and you don't sell something, that's not a failure. Like, what did you just do? Okay. Like, what did you just do? You just made a connection, right? And so that now there's somebody else in the world who knows about you, knows about your value, and knows that you've given them something. Well, like, the chances of that generating something really good over the course of your lifetime is pretty high.
It's pretty high. And so this is kind of a lot of fundamentals in terms of conversation today, right? Because I see a lot of websites saying, we do this, and they essentially end up selling their product or service when they should actually be selling a solution to their customer's problem, right? And so,
right.
This makes a lot of sense. I think this is super awesome, and thank you, Tim, for taking out the time.